Something went very wrong the moment this interview began. What was supposed to be a calm discussion turned into a public meltdown that no one in that studio was prepared for. Before we dive into the video, please like, subscribe, and comment. Now let's get back to the video. What happens when one of Hollywood's loudest environmental voices sits across from a host who clearly came ready for a fight? The result was pure chaos, and what followed quickly became one of the most explosive moments television had seen all year. Viewers expected a routine conversation, but instead they watched a verbal collision that spiraled out of control in real time. The studio lights burned intensely as Leonardo Di Caprio took his seat across from the panel, calm but focused, clearly ready to talk about his latest environmental documentary. He walked in expecting thoughtful questions about climate science, conservation, and solutions for the future. What he did not expect was a full-scale ambush that would leave the audience frozen in silence. Joy Behar leaned forward almost immediately wearing that familiar smirk. Her notes spread across the desk like weapons waiting to be used. "So, Leo," she said slowly, dragging out his name with clear contempt, "you're back talking about climate change again. Tell me, how many private jets did you take just to get here today?" DiCaprio blinked, visibly surprised, but he kept his composure. He answered calmly, "Actually, Joy, I drove here from my hotel. I've been very intentional about reducing my carbon footprint, which is exactly why I'm here today to talk about this." Joy waved him off instantly, dismissive and sharp. "Oh, please," she snapped. "You lecture everyone about emissions while vacationing on yachts in the Mediterranean with supermodels. Don't you think that's at least a little hypocritical?" The tension in the room spiked instantly. The other hosts shifted in their chairs, clearly uncomfortable, while the audience fell completely silent, sensing where this was headed. DiCaprio straightened up, his voice still calm, but firmer now. "Joy, you're mixing personal choices with systemic advocacy," he replied. "I've acknowledged past mistakes, but I've also donated over $100 million to environmental causes and completely changed how I live." Joy scoffed loudly, unimpressed. "$100 million?" she laughed. "That's pocket change for someone worth hundreds of millions. What percentage of your wealth is that really? And while we're at it, how much of your foundation's money actually goes to the environment instead of administrative costs?" The first crack appeared. DiCaprio's voice dropped slightly, controlled but tense. "Are you questioning the legitimacy of my foundation?" he asked. "Because I can provide detailed financial reports showing exactly where every dollar goes." Joy leaned back, clearly enjoying herself. "I'm sure you can," she said smugly. "Hollywood accounting is famous for making numbers. Say whatever you want, just like how you've managed to brand yourself as an environmental hero while burning more fuel than most small countries." Murmurs rippled through the audience as the attack turned personal. Sunny Hostin tried to redirect the conversation toward the documentary, but Joy cut her off without hesitation. "You know what really bothers me about celebrities like you?" Joy continued, pointing her pen straight at him. "You think playing important characters in movies somehow makes you an expert on everything. You didn't even finish high school, Leo. What exactly qualifies you to lecture world leaders about climate policy?" DiCaprio's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests now, no longer relaxed. "Education comes in many forms, Joy," he responded. "I've spent over 15 years working with scientists, researchers, and policy experts. I've visited melting glaciers, deforested regions, and communities already suffering from climate change. Have you?" Joy fired back instantly. "I don't need to visit glaciers to spot hypocrisy," she snapped. "And I don't need lectures from someone who thinks flying private is fine, as long as they buy carbon offsets afterward." That's a false comparison, DiCaprio replied, his voice rising slightly. Carbon offsets, when done properly, make measurable differences. The projects I support have removed thousands of tons of carbon from the atmosphere. Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, please, she said. Carbon offsets are just rich people buying their way out of guilt. Like medieval indulgences. Pay money and your sins disappear. Meanwhile, regular families struggle to afford heat and groceries because of policies people like you push. The accusation hung heavy in the air. DiCaprio leaned forward, his blue eyes flashing. People. Like me? He asked sharply. What exactly do you mean by that, Joy? I mean wealthy Hollywood elites completely disconnected from real life, she replied without hesitation. When gas prices rise or energy costs explode, you don't feel it. Your lifestyle doesn't change one bit. You're wrong, DiCaprio shot back, heat entering his voice. I grew up with a single mother. I know what it's like to worry about bills. That's exactly why I care about sustainable solutions that help everyone, not just the wealthy. Joy laughed harshly, the sound echoing through the studio. Oh, spare me the sob story, she sneered. You haven't worried about a bill in decades. Don't pretend you understand working families when you spend more on one vacation than most people earn in a lifetime. The cameras caught it clearly now, his composure slipping. DiCaprio shook his head in disbelief, his face flushed. This is what's wrong with discourse today. He said, instead of discussing solutions, you're obsessed with personal attacks. Personal attacks? Joy shot back with mock surprise. I'm asking the questions your fans and friendly media refuse to ask. If you can't handle scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't present yourself as a moral authority. Scrutiny? DiCaprio repeated, incredulous. You haven't asked one question about the science, the documentary, or the solutions. Not one. Joy shrugged. I'm questioning your credibility. If you want to be the face of environmentalism, people deserve to know if you practice what you preach. That's when DiCaprio stood up abruptly, shocking the room. Chairs shifted, hosts flinched, and the tension became unbearable. I came here in good faith, he said loudly, and all you've done is attack me personally. Joy stayed seated, smiling. Oh, are you storming off now? She mocked. Very mature. You really can't handle being challenged. Challenged, DiCaprio thundered. You haven't presented a single fact or alternative. This isn't a challenge, it's a smear. Sit down, Leonardo, Joy ordered coldly. You're embarrassing yourself on national television. I'm embarrassing myself? DiCaprio laughed bitterly, still standing. You turned a serious discussion about the planet's future into a tabloid spectacle. Whoopi finally tried to intervene, but DiCaprio cut her off, eyes locked on Joy. No! I want to hear her solution, he demanded. What's your plan for climate change? For displaced communities? For rising sea levels? Joy leaned back, enjoying the moment. My solution? She said calmly. Stop listening to hypocritical celebrities and start listening to scientists without massive financial conflicts. And that single line detonated everything. Financial conflicts, DiCaprio shot back, disbelief written across his face. What financial conflicts are you even talking about? He took a step forward, voice rising. I've invested my own money into renewable energy, sustainable technology, and conservation projects. If anything, I lose money by advocating for environmental causes. Oh, please. Joy waved him off again, clearly unmoved. Your electric vehicle investments alone have made you millions as governments push mandates. Your solar stocks tripled thanks to subsidies. Don't act like this hasn't been profitable for you. DiCaprio's face burned red with anger. Are you seriously suggesting I care about the environment just to make money? He shouted. That's not just wrong, it's absurd. What's absurd, Joy snapped back, is restructuring the entire economy based on the opinions of someone whose main qualification is pretending to be other people for a living. The audience sat frozen, not a single sound breaking the tension. The other hosts looked helpless, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of the blast zone. My qualification, DiCaprio fired back, pacing now. I've worked with NASA scientists, climate researchers, and experts from major universities around the world. I've funded peer-reviewed studies and conservation efforts on 6 continents. And I'm sure they all told you exactly what you wanted to hear, Joy replied smoothly. Funny how the science always seems to align perfectly with your political agenda. Political agenda? DiCaprio stopped pacing, staring at her in disbelief. Saving the planet is a political agenda now. When it involves massive government control over energy, transportation, and industry, yes, Joy said firmly, that's exactly what it becomes. Protecting future generations isn't politics, DiCaprio shot back. It is when celebrities like you push policies you don't live by, Joy replied sharply. That's propaganda. That was the breaking point. DiCaprio slammed his hand down on the back of his chair, the sound echoing through the studio. That's enough, he snapped. You sit here making jokes while attacking people actually trying to solve problems. Trying to solve problems, Joy mocked. Your idea of solving problems is flying around the world, giving speeches about how everyone else needs to sacrifice. I haven't taken a private jet to a climate conference in over 3 years, DiCaprio shouted. But you wouldn't know that, because you don't bother researching anything. You just repeat talking points. Joy stood up too now, matching his energy. My worldview is simple, she said loudly. We shouldn't destroy our economy based on predictions from the same experts who once warned about an ice age. That's a lie, DiCaprio snapped. The scientific consensus has been consistent for decades. Disinformation? Joy laughed harshly. You made a documentary claiming cities would already be underwater. Where are they? The Arctic has lost 75% of its ice mass, DiCaprio roared. The data is clear. And yet we're still standing, Joy yelled back. Still growing food, still living our lives. People are dying, DiCaprio shouted, pointing at her. Extreme weather is intensifying. Communities are being destroyed. People have always faced disasters, Joy replied coldly. That doesn't mean handing control of our lives to environmental extremists. Extremists? DiCaprio's voice cracked. Wanting clean air and water makes me an extremist. Wanting to control how people live does, Joy answered instantly. Security moved closer now, the tension thick enough to feel. The hosts sat frozen, eyes wide as the confrontation spiraled. This is unbelievable, DiCaprio said, running his hands through his hair. You care more about scoring political points than solving the biggest challenge humanity faces. And you care more about virtue signaling than admitting your movement runs on fear, Joy fired back. Fear? DiCaprio whispered dangerously. Joy, do you have children? Yes, and I don't appreciate that question, she snapped. I'm not bringing them into this, he said loudly. The climate crisis already has. Joy rolled her eyes. Spare me the emotional manipulation. My children will grow up in a prosperous world, not the restrictive nightmare you want. Nightmare? DiCaprio snapped. Renewable energy is advanced technology. Technology that fails when the sun doesn't shine, Joy sneered. But I'm sure your mansions have backup generators. This conversation is over, DiCaprio declared, moving toward the edge of the set. I won't waste another second on personal attacks. Running away again? Joy called after him. Perfect, the great crusader. Can't handle tough questions. Tough questions, DiCaprio spun around. You haven't asked a single legitimate one. Pointing out hypocrisy isn't a conspiracy, Joy yelled. You live like a billionaire while demanding sacrifices from everyone else. I've made sacrifices, DiCaprio roared. I changed my lifestyle. I drive electric. My homes are carbon neutral. Joy burst into laughter. Oh, you eat plants. That totally makes up for the yacht. I sold it 3 years ago, DiCaprio screamed. But facts don't matter to you. Facts, Joy shot back. You want to transform civilization based on computer models. They've been proven accurate, DiCaprio yelled. Every warning has been met or exceeded. Then why are you still screaming doom after 20 years? Joy snapped. Because people like you block solutions. DiCaprio exploded. We block economic destruction. Joy fired back. The studio was now complete chaos, voices overlapping, security tense, the audience stunned into silence. We block economic destruction, Joy shouted back, her finger pointed straight at him. We stop you from crushing jobs, destroying the middle class, and handing control of daily life to environmental fanatics. Fanatics? DiCaprio's voice broke as he shouted back. You're the ones willing to burn fossil fuels until the planet becomes unlivable. The planet is not becoming unlivable, Joy screamed. That's hysterical fear talk, and people are tired of it. Look at the data, DiCaprio bellowed, his face turning deep red. Look at temperature records, ice sheets, sea levels. The evidence is overwhelming. I've looked at the data, Joy fired back. And I've also looked at failed predictions, manipulated numbers, and the money flowing behind this movement. DiCaprio froze, staring at her in stunned disbelief, chest heaving as the room went. Silent. When he finally spoke, his voice dripped with disgust. You are exactly what's wrong with this country. Proudly uninformed, hostile to facts, and completely unwilling to face reality. And you, Joy shot back instantly, are exactly what's wrong with celebrity culture. Arrogant, out of touch, and convinced fame makes your opinions superior. My opinions, DiCaprio laughed bitterly. These aren't opinions, this is scientific consensus. Scientific consensus bought and paid for, Joy shouted. Funded by lobbying groups and grant money. That's insane, DiCaprio snapped. You're accusing thousands of scientists worldwide of conspiracy. I'm accusing them of incentives, Joy replied coldly. Follow the money. And fossil fuel companies, DiCaprio demanded. What about their incentives? The billions spent spreading denial. At least they're honest about wanting profit, Joy shot back. They don't pretend they're saving humanity. DiCaprio stared at her like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Did you really just say oil companies are more honest than climate scientists? I said they're honest about motive. Joy clarified, unapologetic. The tension snapped something inside him. This is beyond belief, DiCaprio muttered. You're defending corporations while attacking scientists trying to protect civilization. I'm defending common sense, Joy replied sharply, and calling out hypocrites who want to control everyone else. Control? DiCaprio's voice rose to a shriek. We want clean air, clean water, and a livable future. You want to control energy, transportation, food, housing, and industry, Joy listed rapidly. That's not environmentalism, that's authoritarianism. With a green label, DiCaprio snapped back. You're delusional, completely delusional. And you think you can control the climate by wrecking the economy, Joy replied calmly. Chaos consumed the studio. Hosts waved frantically at producers. Security edged closer. The audience sat frozen, watching history unfold. DiCaprio took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. I came here hoping for an intelligent discussion about humanity's future, he said. Instead, I've faced deliberate misinformation and personal hostility. And I got exactly what I expected, Joy replied smugly. An arrogant celebrity who collapses under real questioning. DiCaprio turned to the main camera, voice steady but burning. To anyone watching, don't let people like Joy Behar convince you that caring about the environment makes you extreme. Don't let hostility drown out science. He turned back to her one final time. When your children ask what you did during the climate crisis, I hope you have a better answer than attacking those who tried to help. Joy didn't hesitate. Her reply sliced through the room. When my children ask what I did during the climate hysteria, I'll tell them I stood up to celebrity bullies who tried to scare people into surrendering freedom and prosperity. That was it. DiCaprio turned and walked off the set without another word, cameras scrambling to follow as the studio erupted into stunned whispers. The hosts sat motionless. Security relaxed only after he disappeared backstage. The silence afterward was deafening. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation flooded social media. Supporters called DiCaprio courageous. Critics said Joy exposed celebrity hypocrisy. Hashtags exploded, opinions hardened, lines were drawn. Some viewers praised Joy for asking what no one else would. Others accused her of bad faith attacks and deliberate provocation. DiCaprio was hailed by fans as a truth-teller pushed too far, while skeptics said he revealed exactly how fragile celebrity activism really is. What made the moment so unsettling wasn't just the shouting. It was how clearly it reflected a deeper divide: facts versus trust, expertise versus skepticism, fear versus freedom. The conversation never returned to solutions, science, or compromise. Instead, it collapsed into something darker. The show moved on, but the damage lingered. That exchange wasn't just television, it was a mirror. A moment where two worldviews crashed so violently that neither side listened and neither side backed down. And that's what made it unforgettable. Not because minds were changed, but because they weren't. The confrontation didn't end with clarity, understanding, or resolution. It ended with outrage, applause, and deeper division. And that may be the most controversial part of all. Because when shouting replaces listening and identity replaces evidence, the argument never ends. It only gets louder. And long after the cameras stopped rolling, one question kept echoing online, unanswered and unsettling. Was this a bold stand against hypocrisy, or proof that no one is actually willing to solve anything anymore? That question is still burning.